often we find that we take the very things that we do every day in life for granted until something happens in a blink of an eye. Hello, I'm Tom Russo, and this is In a Blink of an Eye, where we discuss stories from ordinary people whose lives are changed in an instant and how they overcome through faith, courage, and determination. Join me on this podcast for uplifting stories of how people face various challenges and learn not only to survive, but to thrive. In a Blink of an Eye is sponsored by Marketplace.live. Find what you need and what you want at Marketplace.live. That's Marketplace.live. Now today on the podcast, I want to tell you a story of a forgotten American sports hero. This is a little out of the norm for what I do. I usually interview someone, but every once in a while I want to tell a story from the past. Her name, Betty Robinson. I bet most of you have never heard of her or what she overcame when disaster struck in a blink of an eye. Betty was born in 1911 in Riverdale, Illinois, near Chicago. She was an above-average student, and her unique skill was found purely by accident. During her high school days, the year was 1928, and her science teacher, Charles Price, was also the coach of the track team at Thornton Township High School. Early in that spring semester, he saw her chasing frantically after a train with lightning speed. Now, Betty easily caught up with the locomotive and was able to hop in, and she wound up sitting right beside Coach Price. Now, during the Roaring 20s, sports were not much of an option for girls. In fact, there were no female track members at Thornton Township. There was no female athletics of any kind. Coach Price was astonished at her speed, and he recognized greatness. So he offered her a spot training with the boys' team. Now, women's athletics, especially in track at that time, were just getting started around the world. In fact, the 1928 Olympics, were going to be held in the Netherlands, and they were going to have the first 100-meter race ever for women. Now, a lot of the governing bodies of all of the different sports world were not pleased. Now, Betty had obviously never participated in sports before, much less competitively, but she agreed to train with Coach Price, and by March of 1928, while only 16 years old, she raced in her first competitive meet. It was an indoor meet specifically held for women. Unbelievably, she was actually pitted against the then current U.S. record holder at the 100 meters for women, Helen Filke. Betty ran an unbelievably determined and courageously race, and she came in a very close second to Helen. Her second race was in June, this time outdoors. Got it wrong last time. And this time she beat Ms. Filke, and she equaled the world record for women. The time, however, wasn't recognized by the track world because it was considered wind-aided. This race was only her second race ever, actually qualified her for the 1928 U.S. Olympic team. What an honor for this young woman. You can see from this picture the determination in her face as she trained for the trip. Now, during the Netherlands Olympics, Robinson was the only U.S. athlete to qualify for the 100-meter final. But not only did she qualify for it, she eventually won the gold medal. And she once again equaled that same time that she had done when she beat Filke in that second race of 12.2 seconds. This time, it wasn't considered wind-aided, and she was officially in the record books. She was an Olympic champion, and she was a world record holder, as well as the first woman to ever win an Olympic gold in this event. At only 16 years old, she still, to this day, remains the youngest athlete to win an Olympic 100-meter gold medal. Here you see her dashing across the finish line for her Olympic glory. What an amazing feeling she must have felt at that point in time. Later, in those same Olympic Games, she also appeared on the 4x100 meter relay team, and she helped the U.S. secure a silver medal. She was, as Chicago Tribune reporter William Schreier wrote, an unheralded, pretty, blue-eyed, blonde young woman from Chicago became the darling of the spectators when she flew down the cinder path with her golden locks flying to win. Now, after the Olympics and high school graduation, she joined Northwestern University near Chicago, where she decided to pursue a physical education degree. Again, different at that time for many women. Betty felt that perhaps she could become a coach and help young ladies pursue her new passion, and personally train for the 1932 Olympics in Los Angeles, and maybe, since she was young, the 1936 Berlin Olympics. Running track and as a member of the rifle team for Northwestern, the sky was the limit for this bright young female star. However, on June 28, 1931, amidst the gloomy depression gripping the whole country at the time, Robinson was involved in a horrific plane crash. Here you see a picture of that crash site. Odd that all these people are surrounding it. She was severely wounded, and in fact, many initial reports declared her dead. One of the rescue workers, in fact, that was aiding in the wreckage, passed her by thinking that she was beyond saving, and he actually marked her to be taken to the infirmary known as the Poor Farm because he knew the undertaker there, and that would be that. Betty Robinson, he felt, was no more. Now, obviously, doctors soon learned that she was still living, but she had sustained severe multiple injuries and likely would never ever walk again, much less run or coach. It took her a long 6 months before she was even able to lift herself out of a wheelchair, and 2 whole years before she could walk normally, proving the doctors wrong. Her determination and grit, however, didn't stop there. Defying the odds, she really wanted to do something for the 1932 Olympics. However, she was unable to get healthy enough at that early time to compete. But she was undeterred. She continued to train, and despite not being able to be with her teammates on the 1932 Olympics, and despite her doctor's orders and family members urging her to stop, she believed in herself. It was a fire within her. She didn't want to be known as the girl that lost everything from this plane crash. She wasn't going to let that define her life. And by the time that the 1936 Olympics rolled around, she still wasn't able to kneel down for a normal 100-meter start. So she wasn't able to do her normal event. But she did earn a spot on the 4x100 meter U.S. team. And she was once again an Olympian after a horrific plane crash where she was declared dead. Running as the third leg of her foursome, Robinson held her ground during the race and was part of avenging the silver medal from 1928 as the U.S. team won the gold. They defeated the heavily favored German team of Adolf Hitler's regime. Here you see her medal from the 1936 Olympics in Berlin, as well as a shot of her and her teammates training. Now, she returned to the U.S. a hero, and she remained involved in athletics as an official and a coach. She was inducted into the U.S. National Track and Field Hall of Fame in 1977, and that was followed by a huge honor where she carried the Olympic torch for the Atlantic Olympic Games in 1996. Look at her so happily carrying the torch for the games that she had participated in almost 70 years prior and actually won a gold medal after being declared dead. Betty was happily married and had 2 children. She lived in the Chicago area where she died at the age of 87. An outstanding role model for everyone, especially young ladies, determined to overcome this plane crash and the prognosis that she'd never walk again. And then, of course, you throw on top of that all of the misery of the depression and everything that could toss her away. But Betty Robinson did all of that. Here you see her late in life with her 2 gold medals that she was rightfully so proud of. She truly beat the odds after her life changed in a blink of an eye. Now, if you'd like to learn more about Betty's story, there's a book by Roseanne Manillo called Fire on the Track. It is available. The book, I believe, is available online and at bookstores. So, what we have here is a woman that was unbelievably determined to be a success, despite what happened, despite the tragedy. Now, if you like hearing uplifting stories of overcoming challenges in life, click that like and subscribe button. Maybe you have a story of your own, an accident, sudden loss, PTSD, alcohol, drug abuse, a natural disaster, illness, and you would like to share your journey of overcoming and thriving. Please contact me at the email shown below for consideration for a future podcast interview. I want to thank everyone out there, especially my family, our military veterans, and first responders who put their lives on the line every day. Can't forget about our teachers and our medical professionals who all make the world better, one person at a time. But most of all, thank God for all the blessings in our world. We just need to make sure we concentrate on those. It's so easy to get caught not doing that. Until the next time, my friends, carpe diem, seize the day.